getting big. Sometimes I look better on some of these. Okay, it is going. I look better on some of these.
They are going.
They all are going. Here we go. I can see a little bit there. Okay. Hi, everybody. It's Friday night. I'm going to move my pen.
I don't know what you're trying to see.
I was trying to see this, but now you move yourself off of the screen.
Oh, sorry. Just scoot them out.
Oh, no, you didn't. Okay.
It's big. It's a big screen.
It's Friday night in cool October. We're getting ready to have a fire going outside and
Hi, everybody.
breathing.
I'm Antika.
And I'm Dr. Crystal.
So we're going to talk about barefoot tonight. Well, Dr. Crystal is going to talk about
Being barefoot, and what does that mean? And is it better and worse? And I get a lot of questions because being a chiropractor, I deal a lot with biomechanics. And so it's something that comes up a lot.
Okay.
And it's also something that, we can talk a whole lot about it. We can give an intro, but we talk a lot about shoes.
Right.
And so one of the things that I wear a lot of barefoot type or minimalist shoes. And I do that for a purpose. Montika's seen them. It's my favorites. Most of my shoes are that way. I have the 5 fingers. I have Merrell's. And so at some point, if people are interested, I will talk about the healthy, shoes that are healthier for you and why. But
what does that mean? So when you say barefoot, you're talking about shoes that
mimic barefoot as much as possible. There's nothing
going like having your toes in the sand or in the grass.
Yes, but true barefoot feet is the only barefoot. It's almost, there's nothing comparable. You can put on the most minimalist shoes and it's still not barefoot.
Okay.
And some of the things that I see is, people will come to me and they're wearing built up shoes, and that can range from being built up by podiatrists with lots of arch support, with lots of padding, lots of cushioning, to just like if you run, you're having cushioning. And so our feet, we were created and born with no shoes and socks. Now that doesn't mean we don't need those for protection, but we have a lot of padding on our feet. We have lots of muscles and tendons and ligaments. There's over 30 bones, I think, in the feet, over 100 muscle, ligaments, tendons in the feet. So that says what are they there for? And so a lot of times what I have found is our shoes that we wear on a daily basis inhibit that natural movement. And so a lot of times when you have people that have knee problems, hip problems, pronating, which their knees are turning in, or if they're having a lot of issues or discomfort, a lot of times I look to the feet because that's the base. Most of the time, 90% of us are going to have shoes on most of the time. I've talked to people who wear shoes. They won't even be barefoot in their own house.
Wow.
And so it's really not healthy. Now, I'm not also going to tell somebody who has worn what I call, shoes like we do their whole life and say, oh, just go completely barefoot, run barefoot. That's not really healthy either. We have to build that back up. There are muscles in the feet that need to be strong. But if you are constantly wearing something that does the work for the feet are going to atrophy to some degree and not do the work. Then the dysfunction moves to the ankles, knees, and hips.
Wow.
So I do that whole, and of course all the way up the body, but I do a whole examination. I'm already looking at how their feet are looking, what kind of shoes they're wearing. They may not even know that I'm looking at that. I do that even with people that aren't my patients.
Oh yeah, I do that with all.
You watch people walking?
Yes. She watched people walk, and I watch people breathe.
Yes.
All the time.
It's really interesting because just when it's your work, it's just natural to do. And I'm an observer anyway. But one of the things is like, should I go barefoot? And so minimalism in the forms of shoes is going to be the least amount of padding, the least amount of arch support. So I have a lot of patients going, oh, well, I need arch support. I need support. And I'm like, what do you mean by support? Because I'll even have that conversation with my mom or all those people a lot. It's like, well, those don't have any support. And I was like, well, I don't want support in my shoes. And they'll look at me crazy. Like, what do you mean you don't want support? And so we have to really change our thinking first about how our feet are supposed to function.
It's interesting that you said that because and I'm not plugging one way or the other, but as a nurse, I've worn the Dansko shoes, for a long time. And I know people will say that, well, how could those be comfortable? Because it's,
It's firm
wood.
support.
It's
They
like
actually are
wood
very
and
comfortable.
nothing, but they actually are, right? To me, I find them more comfortable than wearing really expensive tennis shoes with like the
They're really soft.
they're
foam.
soft, yeah, like that the foam, the memory foam, that feels good for like the first hour or so, and then after I've been out on my feet for a long time,
your feet
like
fatigue.
Yes.
Yes. I get that a lot, so mine's the same way. And that was, so one of the things that brought me around this is I used to run long distances. I've ran a couple of half marathons, and when I was first starting out running, I was running like a 5K, and my feet were hurting really, really badly. And so what I found was that my right foot and leg pronated, and it would hurt. And when I wore arch supports, they didn't hurt.
Oh, wow.
And then doing a lot of things were standing on your feet all day, so my feet would hurt all of the time. Like at the end of the day, I couldn't wait to get my shoes off, and my feet would just hurt. I just, in my mind, just thought it was just a part of life. If you want to wear these shoes, you're gonna do this. Your feet are just gonna hurt. And then after I started wearing supports when I was running, and I don't remember how it happened. I had someone made the comment, because there were these slippers and flip-flops that were molded and had arch support, and I heard them say, well, you're never supposed to be barefoot because, you know, you always need to wear arch support. And I thought that to be odd, because I said, wait a minute, we're always supposed to, like, you know, so we get out of bed, we got to have this, and that's what they were implying. We got to have this arch support. That's not how we were created.
Right.
So it started me on this journey of finding a way, like, why are we wearing this and what's going on, and reading like barefoot books and understanding minimalist shoes, and really understand the function of the foot and what it's supposed to do. And so then I started having to train my feet, because I couldn't go from running in the $140 at the time thick shoes with a $40 insert so I could run. Now I can run in a $90 shoe that's really good, that'll last me for years. I have my last pair of running shoes, lasts me like 8 years, because they don't, to me, they just don't wear out. I mean, because they're minimal. To not having to spend that money, and then having the freedom of just being able to run. Now, it took me 2 years of building my feet up and switching back and forth to minimal shoes, walking barefoot, to be able to wear. My first pair of 5-finger Vibrams is the ones that look like gloves on your feet. I have about 5 pair of them.
A lot.
And like in every color. They're one of my favorite. People, they get attention, but people think they're ugly. I don't really care anymore. I used to. But
they're good for you.
They are good for you.
Yeah.
But the first time I wore them, I could only wear them an hour or two at a time before my feet started really hurting. And so what I did was I transitioned from wearing this and then wear my old shoes, and I would just kind of transition back and forth. And so I did that with running too. The stronger my feet got, then the more I could run in a minimal shoe in shorter distances. Now, to this day, I don't run in a completely minimal shoe. My biomechanics aren't good enough. My padding on my foot's not good enough to be able to do that. So I run in a one that has a little bit of 13 millimeter thickness of that, but it is flat, meaning it's a 0 drop, and it has, my toes can spread in them. So those are some of the things that I look for.
What does 0 drop mean?
So most shoes that people wear, all of them, even flats, have a little heel at the back. So the drop is from the back to the front, the amount of drop that you have. Okay. And so most shoes, like even a pair of flats will have, or a flat pair of boots or flat pair of tennis shoes, will have a drop of about 3, 4, 6 millimeters really easily, and then even more. And then heels, of course, have more of a drop. Right. And then the millimeter thickness is how much from the ground up. So I have a pair of Merrells on right now that are barefoot, and they probably have a 1 millimeter to 2 millimeter thickness on the sole. There's no padding at all. But I wear those. I won't run in those. I just wear them.
And those don't have any drop. When you say
the 0 drop.
0 drop, but the padding under it
is the thickness of the padding. Yeah. Okay. Is
that just more for protection, like because you're walking outside, walking on rocks?
Yes.
And possible glass and whatever else. Blah,
yes.
Blah, blah.
Yes. Like I know, like when we go, Turkey Mountain is one of the places a lot of people hike that we go out. And I've seen multiple people hike barefoot up there because, and it is actually good, but in my opinion, for me, it's a little dangerous. One, because I know I will stub my toe. But stepping on things, there's critters out there. So for me, I don't find that safe for me. That would be up to the person. But I understand the benefit of really putting your feet out on that, because I run out in my backyard, sprint in the grass, barefoot, like completely barefoot. And my legs will lightly touch the ground. If I put any kind of shoe on, it tricks our brain into that we can hit harder. So we're actually not are barefoot because our feet will know, but we have to train it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So even with that, when you're talking about, I know in one of our really early videos, we talked about going outside and grounding and
Yes.
barefoot and those
Yes.
types of things. I would love for you to touch on that a little bit. But when we're talking about how we have gotten so far away from the way we were made, biologically and those types of things, it's like, oh, we need to. I remember when I was little, um, they had those baby shoes, and they were
Yes.
like thick, hard bottom shoes
Yes.
that they would put babies in.
The walking shoes.
The walking shoes, and it's like they couldn't curve their feet or get their toes down and get their balance and those types of things. So
That's
we
a good
learned
example.
that that really wasn't beneficial, you know what I mean, for your feet, because you need to be able to mold and feel the ground and get your balance and those types of things. So we get away from being barefoot all the time as infants, learning to walk and those types of things, and then we wear shoes and feel like we have to wear shoes all the time.
So that's what's interesting. So there was a time, because even like my grandmother had questioned me at the time when Jade was walking, and she's almost 10 years old. Oh, you need to put those walking shoes on and get her to walk. It's almost like there's this thing that, but it does is it supports the ankles. But we don't need ankle support to be able to walk unless there's an issue. But then we got smarter about it and said, oh, let's go back to the basics. These babies don't need to be in something that's forming their feet. They need to let their feet form and flow. So why does that change as soon as they start walking to then when they're like 3, 4, 5 years old? Oh, you put them back in hard shoes. That doesn't make sense. Or adults, we need support. So why do babies not need support now? But now as we get a little older, they have to have support. I had a friend that was in a movement class with Jade a while back. So they were probably about 4 or 5 years old. So it's been a few years ago. And he pronated in really well, and his pediatrician wanted him in orthotics to hold that up. And I said, well, here's the deal: it's like you need to do more. And every case is different, so this doesn't apply to everybody. There are kids that might need some support, so I don't want to say just don't do anything. But I said, getting those muscles activated in the feet, knees, ankles, and movement and all those different ranges is what's going to help him. If you put him in orthotics at 5 years old, you're training that foot not to rely on it. Now, if it's something that's needed for a period of time to heal, like a crutch, if I broke my foot, I might need a crutch for that bone to heal. But then if I stayed on that crutch forever, my foot would atrophy and it would never be able to use it. So that's what we're doing when we're putting orthotics in at this point. So I just want to provide a different perspective. It's not a one size fits all, everybody gets rid of their orthotics. Their orthotics can be very beneficial when appropriate and used in the appropriate context and used for the appropriate reason.
Okay.
But for babies and kids, most of the time, we're starting that way too early.
Yeah, and I know a lot of times people are, will buy super cushiony shoes and lots of inserts and things like that that are not being prescribed, where you're just doing that because
it feels good.
Right.
Or we think that it does because it cushions that we need cushion. But the more cushion we put on our feet all the time, the padding in our feet starts atrophying. That's one of the reasons, not the only reason. And so then when you try to go barefoot, your feet are very sensitive. It can't.
That makes sense. Yeah. I know for me, we live in the country, so I'm barefoot pretty much all the time. And I purpose to go outside with no shoes often so I can get my feet on the ground, get my feet in the grass, and walk around. I had a friend that was from Belize, and when I went to visit once, like, I wasn't used to being barefoot all the time, and he was just saying how he was always barefoot. And so, like, those little rocks and pebbles and shells and things that were on the ground never bothered him because his feet were used to the changes. His ankles were used to the changes and those types of things because he, never wore shoes.
Yes.
So I found that really interesting, that when I tried to go and step, it's like, ooh, I felt every little thing under my feet that was uncomfortable, where, just like building up calluses on your hands from doing things, you build up your feet.
Yes, so to be honest, that's one of the things that we also have to realize, as I have been as I have been doing barefoot, my toes have spread some. Now, I think I still have cute feet. However, true barefoot feet all the time, we have to kind of get away with this having to look, I mean, we always put what we think is aesthetically pleasing over function.
Right.
And
but you can still,
you can still paint your toes.
paint your toes.
I mean, but
I was gonna say I like.
but some people
I
have
do barefoot
now,
with
this
my
is-
toes painted.
But this is how I will say is, so a long time ago there were generations
Darren, you're
that
silly. How are you? Thank you for watching.
they wear those shoes that are really pointed, and you will see. I have had patients; their toes are permanently indented, into each other.
Oh yeah, but
because
for women that wear heels all the time,
yes,
you get hammer
bunions
toes
and
that's
hammer
a,
toes.
That's a real.
Those
that's a
are
real
not
thing.
hereditary, like people think. Oh, I have a bunion because no, it's because of our footwear and because of the lack of stimulation our feet are getting from that. Now, is there a genetic predisposition? Yes, but we can fight. We can do that. And then again, I mean, there may be a time when I was transitioning out, I had to wear some supports. I still have to wear a little bit of padding when I'm running on the road. But that's the other thing is concrete is not a natural
Right.
environment. So we have to think if you're working in the hospital, standing or anywhere concrete, standing on your feet all day, we have to take that in consideration. We can't say, oh, just be barefoot. Or, we want to be safe. Like there's a lot of weight training that I recommend people wearing flat shoes, like when they're doing deadlifts, because if you wear any heel or any drop, you are putting extra pressure on the pelvis. That shortens the calves, it shortens the hamstrings. You tilt that pelvis, it actually dumps pain back into the low back and then your low back tightness. When people come back and they talk about have low back pain, I was like, it's coming from your legs too. It's coming from weakness in your abs, but it's also coming from your legs. And I can show, I can show people how their body is going to be with a calf stretch and how they can't even stand up tall when their foot is in this flexed, dorsiflexed, because they're so tight in their calves. And that then translates to not being able to walk properly. So if your calves are tight and your hamstrings are tight and your gluteus maximus is your butt, and a lot of us want round butts right now, but if you're walking with your toes out and you're not stimulating that posterior chain, you're going to have a flattened posterior chain, including a flattened gluteus maximus,
flat booty.
Now some of it's genetic, but you can
build that.
You can
booty
build it
up.
up,
You
and
can
that's
do some
actually
squats
it's
in
power.
Good position.
Yes, and it's a power. It's powerful. So you're walking, and you're actually you're powering through a walk cycle, which is then going to perpetuate a healthy movement. But if you're walking the other way, it can perpetuate an unhealthy movement. So it's all the way up, and these little things that don't seem important, but then they can cause problems later. Yes.
Bare feet.
Bare feet.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yes.
So, but you do those for those ladies and like myself who
And
like to
gentlemen.
wear the occasional heel.
Yes.
And you can do that.
You can. So this is an interesting perspective. So after I've been working, like I could not wear heels, high heels. It would be hurting my feet. They would be painful. I didn't walk very well in them. After working on, and I have done, just as a side note, yoga for over 2.5 years,
Right.
2.5 years. I've been doing some other balance work and movement, restorative work. I wear 80 to 90% of the time I wear minimal shoes. But my job allows me to do that. But when I go out and I want to wear heels or boots or something, I wear those. They are actually, yes, toes pointed forward, Daryl, yes. But I actually can balance on my heels better. As long as I don't squeeze my toes too much, because my toes are spread a little bit more than they were a long time ago, I can actually wear a pair of heels longer without any issues because I have that balance.
Interesting. Hey,
I know
Dr.
we're seeing-
Kundell, how are you?
But and then when you're talking, so that is, and this is so, it's so much, and I try to start people with doing some basic stuff. I look at their lifestyle, what can they do? And one of the things that I will recommend is be barefoot as much as possible safely. That's going to vary from person to person.
Right, and your work, where you work, and so on and so forth.
Yes. And so this is where it's a good idea. And this is part of the restorative movement that I do. I call it restorative because we have to start from the ground zero sometimes with some of these things. And it's sometimes doing just that barefoot work with maybe a couple other little stretches. Seems like nothing, but that can take. I did that for 2 years, just incorporating that in what I did, and it's made a huge difference.
Yeah, I will say that when working with you and learning how to training myself to do squats in a proper position, like the first time I was like, oh, okay, I can't do this. And I felt like before that I was really good at doing squats, but getting into that, because when you're working with trainers and you're working with different people, they're not paying as much attention to your feet and where your toes are.
They're going to say do however you can, which is okay initially, but as then long as
your knees aren't going over your toes, it's usually the extent of what they're going to talk to you about. But some of the things that you shared with me was completely different, and you could feel it because I'm engaging different muscles.
And we're talking about
it requires a lot more balance.
And then it also translates to the pelvic muscles, which is pelvic floor. So we're talking about women, and we'll go into this a whole nother thing, is talking about like incontinence. We're talking about prolapsed organs, which means your organs are falling into your vagina. That's not really fun.
Right.
And so, and so these are things that start translating to all of this. So yes, the more I wear my shoes, the more I feel it. But now when I wear shoes, when I have my minimal shoes, I don't feel like I need to take my shoes off every day. My feet feel good at the end of the day most days.
Yeah. I will say that I am much more comfortable being barefoot than having shoes on. So yeah, no, that's awesome. And then even with talking about grounding and those different types of things, actually getting out, getting your feet on the ground, feeling that grass is a great, or dirt or patch if you live in an apartment, wherever you can find it. That's so good, for your overall well-being, and just getting connected to the earth and getting some of all of the 5G and everything else that we have going on, getting some of that to move through and out.
And if you don't really have a space to be able to do a lot outside, and the different textures, what we call textures outside, because when you're out in the grass, it's different textures. It's not flat and concrete. One of the ladies that I follow, that when I started learning about this, her name is Katie Bowman with the Nutritious Movement. She is a biomechanist, and she is brilliant. This is where kind of some of this has started, is even just getting a pan or an area of flat rocks, smooth rocks in your house, and stepping on those and walking on those and kind of doing that type of thing to get your feet stimulated in that way. So it seems very simple and kind of weird, but I've learned that I can be weird. So look, does he live around us? Because he probably needs to come see me.
No, that is my godbrother, and Daryl is in California.
Oh, well, maybe we'll find somebody. We have suggestions, Daryl. I'll have Antika tell you later, or we can contact, because yes, there's lots of suggestions, but I would like to do a whole history, or find somebody that can help him.
Oh yeah, we can do that.
Because if he's not here,
and we could Zoom, we could do all that. We can do it. Okay, well, we wanted to come on, and you're in Houston. I didn't know you were in Houston.
That's a little closer.
That is closer. That's about 8 hours from us. So
yes.
We can.
So that might be easy.
Yeah,
he should come visit you then.
Yay! All right. Well, we're going to go on ahead and sign off, y'all. We're going to go and enjoy this.
Roast some marshmallows.
Yes.
I might not eat them.
With our babies outside by the fire in the cool October. And it was good to see everyone. And everybody have a blessed night.
Okay. All right. See you guys later. Bye.
Where? I don't see the off. Help me. Help.
Oh, he said the sound is really low. That's weird.